Here we are then, Oulton Park, and the sun is shining. Dave and Amanda are here, ready to bring you qualifying for this second round of the Ferrari Challenge UK here in Oulton Park. And I have to say, Amanda, I was watching the timing screens avidly during both FP1 and FP2. It was really rather exciting, so I think qualifying is going to be great.
I'm really hoping it's going to be great. I think you're absolutely right. There's quite a lot of sort of strategic tyre choices that were going on in the two free practice sessions. But of course, this is round two, it's race 3, because of course we had 2 races at Brands Hatch to kick things off. No, going back to the tyres though, yes, I mean, we saw Gilbert absolutely flying in those free practice sessions, looking supremely dominant. And reigning champion, Andrew Morrow, looked as if he was going to be struggling a little bit, but I've just had a chat with him. And of course, as well as being in Europe last week and racing a very different car altogether, he is now reunited with his beast from last year. And has been on old tyres. He's only had 1 set of new tyres and hasn't done the practice session. So I think Andrew has fire in his belly. So even though it looked like it was going to be a little bit different, I think we're going to see some great things in qualifying.
I think you're absolutely right. And the thing is that actually there's a direct correlation between Andrew Morrow and Gilbert Yates. And the reason I say that is Gilbert Yates, you look at his pace, you look at what he's able to deliver, and you think, yes, this chap has got a lot of racing experience. Actually, like Andrew Morrow, he hasn't. You know, he did a couple of seasons in some other things and is doing the full campaign in the Ferrari Challenge UK and really enjoying it. And another slight ace up his sleeve. Now, Andrew Morrow, of course, has got the hugely experienced Johnny as his driver coach. Gilbert Yates has Tom Fleming, who knows a thing about propelling a Ferrari Challenge car to success.
He certainly does, indeed. And that's the wonderful thing, really, about the guys here, because a lot of them are learning on the job as well. It's a real challenge, actually, and particularly on a circuit like this. This is unlike different tracks, or unlike many of the other tracks here in the UK, built around old airfields. This is actually built in a country park. And I was actually up in the commentary box with Mark watching FP2. Nothing, you know, you forget just how undulating it is.
Yes.
And there are certain points in the track where it almost looks as if there's 4 wheels off the ground. There's almost air underneath the car. Wow. So it is a real challenge and definitely one to get your head around, because, you know, you've got a lot of trees and you don't have the same runoff area that many drivers might be used to.
It's a fair point. This Oulton Park, you're quite right, a lot of elevation changes. I just want to go back to what I was saying about Gilbert Yates and Tom Fleming. You can see them, actually, I can see with my beady eye that they're deep in discussion and analysing data as we speak right now. Tom, of course, coming here fresh from success just last weekend, along with Alicia O'Donoghue, another Ferrari Challenge driver and indeed champion. So, yeah, passing on good advice to Gilbert Rund as to how he will get on with this qualifying session. There's Andrew.
Looking on.
Yes,
They're sharing
Andrew
a garage,
Morrow.
these two, and Andrew is just there taking a little peek, seeing if he can probably pick up a little bit of advice or two, or know at least what Gilbert's going to be up to.
I wanted to pose a racing question to you, Amanda, experienced racing driver, top succeeder. Andrew Morrow, he's kind of doubled his challenge this weekend, because you mentioned last weekend he was racing in Mugello in the all-new 296 Challenge car in Europe. And he's had to come here and kind of forget everything he learned last weekend to get back into the 488 Challenge Evo, which is an awesome racing car, but they are very different.
Very different, exactly.
Have you had to do that in your career?
Yes, and it's always difficult. It does take you a little bit of time. The benefit he's got is that, of course, he knows this car well.
Yes.
He's raced here before, you know, so he's not having to learn something from scratch. It's just a case of, I always say it's about seat time. It's about what you feel coming through your seat, because nothing can actually teach you that. It's just experience and mileage. Now, obviously, Andrew was saying he didn't get to do the practice session that was here last week because, as we said, he was in Mugello. So he's really starting from scratch. Now, it's not impossible. And, you know, he was very much on the pace, but very much snapping at the heels of Gilbert Yates. But it is a challenge, and it does just take a little bit of time to get into it. It's about a mindset shift.
Whilst we are waiting cars coming out on the track, we should remind ourselves that there are two categories within the Ferrari Challenge UK. The Trofeo Pirelli drivers, easily identifiable because of the red strip across the top of the windscreen. And of course, we also have the Copa Shell drivers, where one Mr. P. Hunter did all right in FP2.
Wasn't he doing well?
Yes.
And I mean, he's also, slightly bleary-eyed. We're going to be careful talking to him too much about the bleary-eyed, but it is in fact because he has just come back from Miami. So in Florida. So he's pumped up, he's ready to go. And I mean, talking to him at Brands Hatch as well, he was really frustrated with his performance. And in actual fact, even frustrated with his performance, even though he was fairly dominant in the Shell category in free practice 1 and 2, he was being held up by traffic a lot of the time. So he feels he's still got plenty of time in the car, plenty of time in himself as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on as well. But he's definitely a man with fire in his belly.
I can hear the rumble of a 4-a-day Challenge Evo, and I think that's Steve Dobson making his way out down the pit lane, because I can see the green light illuminated at the bottom of the pit lane. So from Amanda and I, just for the moment, we'll cross up to our race voice, or our qualifying voice on this occasion, and bid a very good afternoon to one Mr. Mark Werrell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Amanda. Qualifying about to get underway in advance of the third round of the Ferrari Challenge UK here at Oulton Park. Beautiful clear skies. I think summer, or spring at least, is finally here. The circuit, as ever, looks immaculate, and the 488 Evo cars make their way out onto circuit in advance of this 30-minute qualifying session that will set the grid for the race that we'll see later on this afternoon. I say it certainly is warm here at Oulton Park. The weather conditions were beautiful yesterday when we were all busy setting up here at Oulton Park. They were absolutely perfect for free practice 1 and free practice 2, and well, the air temperature has risen. It was 19 degrees for free practice 1 earlier on. It's now 22 degrees air temperature, which means the track temperature has climbed another couple of degrees as well. 30 degrees the track temperature, so I would say pretty much ideal conditions, because there's a very, very slight breeze, but not much more than that. And as ever, MSV and the Oulton Park maintenance team have absolutely groomed the circuit. It looks fantastic. So whilst the cars are heading out onto track, we managed to jump on board with the number 82 Stratstone Manchester car. Peter Hunter is going to show us what it's like around here at Oulton Park. So he'll come over the start-finish line. You're in 5th gear as you head up towards the first corner, Old Hall corner. Hard on the brakes, down into 4th. Look for the apex, focus on the exit, and then flat out as you head along the avenue. Move the car over towards the right-hand side as you get in towards Denton's. Brake in a straight line for Cascades, down to 4th gear. Stay off the curbs, short shift to 5th, and carry the speed out on the exit of the corner. You're up to 6th as you head along Lakeside, flat out. Late on the brake for Island Bend, just a bleed of the brake, and then you're back onto the gas. Stay towards the middle of the circuit though, as you head down in towards 3rd gear. Shell Oils off the brakes, use the camber at this part of the circuit, and then short shift up into 4th gear, 5th gear, and then as you head up towards the braking area for Denton's, get the car over to the right-hand side, use the curbs on the left and on the right, but try and straighten up the exit, because you want to carry the speed out of the exit of that section of the circuit, and you head flat out over Hilltop. Over Hilltop, you'll then head downhill in towards the braking area for Hislops. Don't brake too late, down into 3rd gear, onto the right, then onto the left, get back over to the left as you then flick the car up towards Knickerbrook. Take it in 3rd gear, make sure that you get a good exit, use the curbs on the exit, and then you'll shift from 3rd up to 4th, up to 5th, up to 6th gear as you head up towards the daunting section of the circuit at Druids. Onto the brakes, down into 5th gear for Druids, but get back on the power nice and early if you can. Be careful of those curbs on the exit, and you'll hold 5th gear all of the way underneath the Warwick Bridge up towards Lodge Corner. Hard on the brakes again for Lodge Corner, down 2 gears to 3rd gear. Be careful, don't run wide on the exit of the corner, pick up the throttle nice and early. Over Dearly, you go back up to 4th gear, and you'll just hit 5th as you come over the start-finish line. That's a lap of the Oulton Park International Circuit. So that gives you an idea as to what it's like. You could see all of those undulations of the circuit that Amanda and Dave were chatting about. That's the challenge of this beautiful, beautiful tree-lined circuit. And already we've got a few of the cars have taken to the circuit. You can see there in the pit lane, Robert Rees, who went well in free practice 2. He was third quickest of the Copa Shell cars in free practice 2, is Robert Rees. At the wheel of the Dick Lovett entered machine. There's Gilbert Yates, who was quickest of all in free practice 1 and free practice 2. As they suggested, sharing the garage with the reigning champion Andrew Morrow, who in the background of the shot I can see is just putting on his racing overalls, so he is going to be a little bit later entering this session. But as they alluded to, he has got an ace up his sleeve with only having utilised 1 new set of tyres so far, so he should have a set of sticker Pirellis to go out onto and see what he might be able to do as he readapts from the 296 he was racing at Mugello last weekend back into the 488 Evo. So over the start-finish line, AJ Litt is the first of those to head onto a flying lap. In fact, no, that's Stephen Dobson, very similar liveried car. So Stephen Dobson from Dick Lovett Swindon, looking to see what he might be able to do. He's popped in his first lap, so his first flying lap. That's a 1 minute 57.958, but it takes a couple of laps around here at Oulton Park to get the temperature into the tyres, and Stephen Dobson will be hoping that he can improve upon what was third quickest in free practice 1 from him. He was second quickest of the Copa Shell cars in free practice 2, and he's going quicker on this lap than he did on the previous one. So through Shell Oils, really is very banked, that section of the circuit round through Shell Oils, 180-degree corner, but you really can hug the car into the apex there. Uses all of the curbs, but not too much as he bounces over them, heading through the Britain chicane. So he was quicker on the first third of the lap. The second sector is after this next section that he's coming up to. So he's going down into Hislops now, where he'll turn right and turn left, and then start to move the car back over for the right-hander at Knickerbrook, which is where he's heading to now. As he goes underneath the pedestrian bridge at Clay Hill, that's when we get an indication as to what the second sector is looking like from Steve Dobson. And he is quicker through the second sector as well. So he's looking good here, is Steve Dobson. 1 minute 42.0 was his fastest time in free practice 2. So he's looking to try and eclipse that in the early stages of this 30-minute qualifying session, for which there's 22.5 minutes still remaining. So see what his time might look like. I'm hoping for good things also from Pranav Vagala. He went well in free practice 2. He was 4th quickest overall at the wheel of the HR Owen car. 1 minute 40.1 was his quickest time in free practice 2, which was about half a second quicker than he managed in free practice 1. And as Pranav Vagala heads over the start-finish line, he should go to the top of the times, and indeed does. 1 minute 40.510 from Pranav, running in Trofeo Pirelli, hence the red windscreen header to his car. So that is the fastest time that we've had in the session so far. Only 3 times, as 3 cars have set flying laps so far. Pranav Vagala tops them all at the moment. Now he's heading along Lakeside now. We'll get an indication as to what this lap is looking like, and he's quicker through the first third of the lap than he was previously. So get the car into the centre of the circuit, head onto the brakes. You can see the glow of the brake discs as he touches them, heading in towards Shell Oils. Get early on the power coming out of the corner, clear track ahead of him for the moment. And then up towards the Britain chicane, where again you can see the nose of the car just dip as he tucks the car in towards the Britain chicane over Hilltop. Hopefully not going to be compromised by the car that he's just working his way past, which is Peter Hunter, who sees him coming, indicates, moves out of the way so as not to compromise the lap of Pranav Vagala. Now, through the first sector, he was quicker than he had previously gone. What is the second sector of this lap looking like for Pranav? He's just coming up towards the end of the second sector now, and we'll get an indication as to what the time looks like. And through the second sector of the lap, he's actually just a shade slower, 6 1/1000ths of a second slower through the second sector, so the blink of an eye in terms of difference. But what can he do in the third and final sector? It is looking as though if he gets the third sector right, he should be on for an improvement. But can he go quicker than the 1 minute 40.1 that he posted in free practice 1? So over the start-finish line he will come, and it is going to be a 1 minute 40.3 from Pranav Vagala. So another improvement in terms of the fastest lap of this session so far. Now, some of the drivers might break this into 2 sections, so they may well do a few laps, come into the pit lane, maybe a few little adjustments to either tyre pressures in the car, or maybe even swap onto another set of the allocated slick Pirelli tyres that they've got for this weekend. Pranav going slightly slower through the first sector this time than he did on the previous lap. Out of the pit lane comes Robert Rees, so he's about to join in the qualifying session. We saw Peter Hundred come out. You can see the stickers on those tyres. That's a brand new set of Pirellis that he's heading out onto the circuit. So the first lap is try and get some temperature in the tyres. They don't go on heated, they go on cold, so you've got to work the car to build those tyre temps up. Steve Dobson, in the meantime, is second quickest in this session, 1 minute 45.999, so just dipping into the 1 minute 45 second bracket. And through the first sector of this lap, Steve is quicker than he had been on the lap prior. He's also quicker through the second sector as well. So it's looking good for improvement this time through for Steve Dobson. The sun still glinting off the cars in the beautiful sunshine that we've got here at Oulton Park. Nice and neat and tidy through Druids Corner. He'll be onto the brakes and down into third gear as he heads in towards Lodge Corner. Pick up the apex, get on the throttle early, but don't let the car run too wide coming out of the corner. He was nice and neat and tidy there. And what could he do? Because he's now dropped down to third quickest. And as Steve Dobson comes through, that was another improvement from him. 1 minute 43.415. So moves him back from third quickest, back up to second quickest. And at the moment, he is leading Copa-Shell. So the fastest of the Copa-Shell drivers. Now, AJ Litt has had a lap time disallowed for going beyond the circuit limits, and when we mean that, what it means is there's a white line painted around the circuit. You cannot put any part of the contact patch, the tyre, beyond the white line, apart from where there's a red and white painted curb. And if you've got the red and white painted curb, you can run over that, but again, you can't put your tyres beyond the red and white painted curve. So if you drop onto the green painted tarmac that's beyond it, or onto the grass, that means you've gone beyond the circuit limits. And if you do that, it does mean in qualifying you lose that lap time. Well, that's what he had done, so now just needs to make sure that he keeps things nice and tidy, stays within the white lines or on the red and white curbs and no further. This looks a tidy lap still. And AJ Litt is quicker through both the first and the second sectors on this lap. Circuit sort of drops away. It's slightly adverse camber as you come out of Druids Corner. Very easy to get the car running wide onto the curbs there, but beautiful job. Nice and neat and tidy, very controlled. Looks good as well as he heads out of Lodge Corner and up towards Deer Leap. He is third quickest at the moment, AJ Litt. What can he do? He goes second quickest, 1 minute 41.213. So it's Trofeo Pirelli drivers, first and second at the moment. And the driver that is top of the times is the number 29 car in the hands of Pranav Vagala, who's got Lorcan Hannafin as his driver coach for this weekend. He did a 1 minute 40.005 last time through. He's done a 1 minute 40.3 this time through, so slightly slower, but number 29 car, as it heads round through Old Hall, still tops the times at this stage. And I think the car he's chasing around the circuit is another car that might just give him a little bit of a tow potentially down the straights. Hamandra Pillai heads out onto the circuit. Hamandra looking as though he is on for good things. He was third quickest in the second free practice session. He was second quickest in the first free practice session we had earlier on, so arguably ought to be hoping for a front row start as he heads out for his first qualifying lap. So Pranav Vagala, fastest of all at the moment. He's eased things off a little bit through the first sector. He's managed to catch up with a little bit of traffic as well as he heads in towards the second sector. So I don't think he'll be improving this time through because he's behind Steve Dobson's car. Steve will move out of the way. Pranav works his way past him as they head over Hilltop. But Pranav a fair bit slower through the first sector, so I think he may well be destined for the pits at the end of this lap. In the meantime, Robert Rees heads out of Druids underneath the Warwick Bridge, looking to see what he can do at the wheel of the number 8 car, entered by Dick Lovett Swindon. Runs in Copa-Shell, and as Robert Rees comes over the start-finish line, this will be his first flying lap, which is a 1 minute 55.690. More to come from Robert. He was down in the 1 minute 42s earlier on, so that is just his first flying lap, building the core tyre temperature and looking to see what he might be able to do. It's over half of the session still to go, 15 minutes and a bit of change of the session still to go. Pranav Vagala topping the times, but Gilbert Yates is out there on circuit, and we know that Gilbert Yates has pace at the wheel of his Charleshurst number 11 488 Evo this weekend. He was fastest of all in free practice 1 and free practice 2. He managed to do a 1 minute 37.799 earlier on. Well, he's just done his first flying lap, and this will now be the lap to watch for Gilbert Yates. You can see the car dancing around on the edge of Adhesion as he worked his way out of Old Hall Corner. And again, nose of the car really dips. Look at the glow on those brake discs as he heads in towards the left-hander at Cascades, runs onto the curbs, but no further than that. So he's pushing hard on this one. And through the first sector of this lap, Gilbert Yates is quicker than he's previously been. And he's not that far away from setting an absolute best in the first sector. His first sector was at 24.24. The best we've had through that sector is at 24.20, so literally 4/100ths of a second down on going purple through that first sector for Gilbert Yates. Bounces over the curbs as he heads through Britain's. Try and straighten up that exit so you can get on the power nice and early. It's looking good so far, looks neat and tidy as he heads over Hilltop. Make sure you don't brake too late as you head in towards the downhill braking area for Hislops. Easy to brake too late into that section, and then it means that you can't get the car anchored up and turned in time. But Gilbert Yates, nice and neat and tidy again, uses all of the red and white painted curb, but no more than that. This lap is coming together well. Absolute best through the second sector for Gilbert Yates. So quicker than he's previously gone through the first sector, quicker than anybody through the second sector, nice and neat and tidy through Druids. All he's now got to do is safely negotiate Lodge, and this should see Gilbert Yates towards the top of the times. In the meantime, up to third quickest has come championship returnee Gary Redman. But Gilbert Yates heads over the start-finish line, and what does the time look like from Gilbert? He goes to the top of the times, 1 minute 39.220 from Gilbert Yates. Impressive first lap from him, and it looks as though he's going for another quick lap, this time through with 13 minutes still remaining. So again, onto the brakes. Avoid the curbs on the apex of Cascade. Use a bit of the curb on the exit. He was maybe a little bit wider than he wanted there, was Gilbert Yates. You see the car moving around, and again, first sector of this lap, absolute best through the first sector of the lap, quicker than anybody has gone in this qualification session so far. So turns his way out of Shell Oils. He'll be hoping that he can have a good result here. He comes into this weekend having had a 5th and a 2nd place overall at Brands Hatch. Lies 3rd in the championship standings, but the drivers that are 1st and 2nd in the championship are not competing this weekend. So Gilbert Yates, good opportunity, if he has a solid weekend, to potentially leave Cheshire as the championship leader. Now, come the race, it's 15 points for a win, it's 12 for 2nd, it's 10 for 3rd in your respective class, whether it be Trofeo Pirelli or Copa Shell. There's an extra point for pole position in each one of the qualification sessions, both today and tomorrow, and an extra point for the fastest lap as well in the regulations for this year. And Gilbert Yates gave a little bit of time away in the middle sector, I think, this time through. Yeah, he's eased off through that middle sector, so didn't quite hook the lap up. So this lap is going to be probably mid 1 minute 40s, I would have thought. So it's not quite coming together for him. It does look as though it's coming together, though, for the reigning champion, Andrew Morrow. Quicker than he's previously gone through the first sector. Absolute best for the reigning champion through the second sector. Gilbert Yates, yes, it was a mid 1 minute 40, a 1 minute 46.0. But Andrew Morrow comes through and over the start-finish line at the wheel of the number 1 car and goes 2nd quickest, 1 minute 39.570 from him. It was an absolute best through the middle sector of the lap for Andrew Morrow. And what could he do on this lap? Turning his way down through the corner. Gilbert Yates actually had that lap time disallowed as he came over the start-finish line. So I think because he'd run wide coming out of Cascades, I think he realised that it was not going to be a good lap, and that was why he backed off through the middle sector. A little puff of dust there as Andrew Morrow clips the apex curb at Island Bend absolutely beautifully. Turns his way through Shell Oil's corner. And the reigning champion, who did claim a win here at Oulton Park in 2023. He started the season with a double win at Snetterton and then claimed the win in the first of the 2 races here at Oulton Park. Andrew Morrow looking to see whether he can get to the very top of the times. At the moment, he is destined to start on the outside of the front row of the grid, as into the pit lane comes Pranav Vangala and hops out of the car. So does that mean Pranav is done with qualifying? If that's the case, then at best he is going to line up 3rd on the grid at the moment. Peter Hunter is also in the pit lane at this stage. he is fastest of the Copa Shell drivers and actually has a little bit of a buffer between himself and the second quickest of the Copa Shell drivers, which is Robert Rees. But I think Peter Hunter is heading back out onto circuit now with 10 minutes of the session remaining for another roll of the dice. Local circuit for Peter Hunter. Over Hilltop comes Hamandra Pillai. He was third quickest in free practice 2 earlier on, 1 minute 39.9 being his best. Well, Hamandra Pillai in this lap is quicker than he's previously gone through the first sector. What does the time look like through the second sector? Quicker than he's previously gone through the second sector, Hamandra Pillai. So he is currently 6th quickest. He's only done 1 real flying lap so far, but again, carries a lot of speed through the daunting section of the circuit at Druids, and is just coming up towards the final corner now, really. Heavy braking area for Lodge Corner. Turns the car in, gets on the power again nice and early, shifts up through the gears as he crests Deer Leap. And for Hamandra Pillai, as he comes through and over the start-finish line, he goes 4th quickest, 1 minute 40.367 for Hamandra Pillai. So the Malaysian driver runs wide, though, coming out of Old Hall Corner there. See the car just go beyond the red and white painted curb onto the green tarmac, so that may well get picked up on by the officials. So the Jardine Colchester car being harried around Cascades all the way along Lakeside. And on this lap, is Pillai any quicker? Yes, he is. He goes a little bit quicker through the first third of the lap. Let's say that did include the car potentially just running slightly wide coming out of Old Hall Corner. The drivers absolutely on the limit, trying to wring everything they can out of the V8 engines, 670 horsepower machines. Forced induction, of course, 3.9 litre turbocharged car. We're also going to have Andrew Morrow come through to complete another lap, but in the meantime we can go down to the pit lane. And Amanda.
Well, just a little update on car number 29, Pranav Vangala. He has come into the pits. Qualifying is over for him. No issues with the car. He thinks he's got his fastest lap and is quite happy with his qualifying performance.
Thanks, Amanda. So, yeah, for Pranav Vangala, he went about 1/10 of a second quicker than he managed in free practice 2. So, absolutely, he has done everything that he thinks he can do in this qualification session. Andrew Morrow clearly thinks not for him at the moment, because he's still pressing on around the circuit, but is a little bit slower through the first sector than he has previously gone, the reigning champion, proudly sporting the number 1 on his car for this year. And maybe this isn't going to be the lap for him. Yeah, just again, you can tell the way the car is being driven around the circuit that this isn't the lap on which he's going to do it. So he's eased things off a little bit through the middle sector of the lap, and will no doubt be pushing as hard as he possibly can towards the end of this lap to build the momentum for the next one and have one more go at it. His last lap time disallowed for track limits as well. So again, just ran that little bit wide. So through the Roberts chicane, through the Hislop chicane, and then starts to turn his way through Knickerbrook. You can see him moving out of harm's way to allow Peter Hunter to go through, who still continues to be the fastest driver in Copa Shell at the moment. So Peter Hunter at his local circuit, with the support of Stratstone Manchester as well. Andrew Morrow now will want to try and build momentum towards the end of this lap. He's got Gilbert Yates ahead of him by the look of things, who still remains the quickest in this session. And what is Gilbert going to do? Well, Gilbert is, at the moment, I think trying to concentrate on the exit of Lodge to go for a quick lap, which is what Andrew Morrow was trying to do. And no, Gilbert Yates comes to the pit lane, Andrew Morrow comes to the pit lane, and over the start-finish line, therefore, will come Gary Redman, who is third quickest of the Copa Shell cars at this stage. Turns his way through Old Hall Corner, right towards the very edge of the red and white painted curbs there, but I think stays within the confines of the circuit as they head down in towards Cascades. And with Gary Redman on a good lap, let's go back down to the pit lane, this time though to Dave Richardson.
Thank you very much, Darren. You've always got a smile on your face, but it must be frustrating because you're watching the timing screen, you're watching everyone out there on track. Now, you're not out there.
No, unfortunately in P1, power steering pump failure, so they're getting it fixed now, so we should be out for the race anyway. So
the guys are working really hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
And credit to them. And I know you've been underneath there as well, trying to help where you can.
4 guys under there.
Okay, so the latest information you have is that you're probably not going to make any of the Q session, but you will be okay for the race.
I'll be okay for the race. Yeah.
Thanks
So
for taking
looking forward
time to talk
Thanks.
to us. Okay, yeah, appreciate that. So there we are, drama, Mark, and unfortunately for Darren, he's not going to be out there on track during qualifying, but will indeed be out there for the race. That's the latest we have.
Thanks, Dave. Yep, so hopefully we'll see the JCT 600 Brooklands car out for the race later on. In the meantime, we've had a change for pole position in reality in Copa Shell, because Robert Rees at the wheel of the largely blue number 8 car has gone quicker than Peter Hunter. Robert Rees has just popped in a 1 minute 41.482 to go 88 thousandths of a second quicker than Peter Hunter, so he picks up pole position provisionally in Copa Shell, but Peter Hunter is out there on circuit at the moment as well, and Peter Hunter was slightly slower through the first sector than he's previously gone, but went quicker than he'd previously gone through the middle sector of the lap. Gilbert Yates is out of the session as well. He's busy chatting away to Tom Fleming, who had great results and finished on the podium in the Ferrari 296 at Brands Hatch in the Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS just last weekend. Qualified on the outside of the front row of the grid as well for that race last weekend, and really had a solid weekend, teamed up with Alessio Dono, who he was fighting for the European Championship with last year. Alessio ultimately became the champion. Tom Fleming was the runner-up, but he did win the World Finals, Tom Fleming, the back end of the year. 4 minutes of the session still to go. Robert Rees, looking for pole position in Copa Shell, is slightly slower on this lap than he has previously gone, not by much, as he turns his way through Druids. It looks as though he has backed off on this lap, so I think he's quite happy that he has pushed as much as he can and has at the moment taken pole away from the number 82 car of Peter Hunter for Copa Shell. Robert Rees is 6th quickest overall, Peter Hunter is 7th quickest overall, and on this lap Peter Hunter slightly slower through the first sector than he's gone previously, slightly slower through the second sector as well, but it looks as though he's still sticking with the lap at the moment, the former rally driver. Out of Druids, a little bit of traffic just up the road, but that moves neatly out of the way, spots him coming, good driving, so it doesn't compromise the lap of Peter Hunter, who heads up towards Lodge Corner, gets on the power, but first and second sector slightly slower than he's previously gone. What can he do this time through as he comes through over the start-finish line? It's 1 minute 41.7, so it was about a quarter of a second down on his previous best. Almost runs out of room heading round through Old Hall with 3 minutes to go. Looks like Peter Hunter is going to have another go at seeing what he might be able to do. Into the pit lane, that looks as though that's the crash helmet of Gary Redman, returning to the championship for the first time since 2019, where he finished runner-up in Copa Shell. First thing he does, get out the car, crash helmet off, go and have a look at the screens to see things how are going on. Looks as though AJ Litt is done with qualifying as well at the wheel of number 88 car. He is out of the car, chatting away to Jack Mitchell, who is his driver coach for this weekend. Jack, who is a very well-respected GT driver. We've still got a few cars out there trying to push on. Hamandra Pillai is one of those. The number 19 car lost its lap time last time through, which was Hamandra Pillai. Track limits. So Hamandra is 5th quickest currently. His best is a 1 minute 40.367. His first sector is slower than he's previously gone, but only just. So again, if he can string the rest of it together, particularly the middle sector, because that's the longest section of it, he could look for an improvement. He only needs to improve by 33 thousandths of a second either to better the time of AJ Litt. So over Hilltop, he will thread his way. No traffic around, so he can really press on. Just focus his efforts on the braking points. Make sure that you get the car turned in towards the apex nice and neat and tidy. I think, again, as he just backed off a little bit there, round through Hislops, out of Knickerbrook. And, yeah, the car just doesn't look as though he is pushing as hard as he could. We'll check and see what the sector time looks like. No, he has backed it off through that middle sector. So it looks as though Hamandra Pillai is probably going to be destined for the pit lane at the end of this lap. Robert Rees is in. Looks as though he may well have secured pole position in Copa Shell. Peter Hunter is still out on track at the moment. But for Robert Rees, he would be hugely pleased with that. He comes into this weekend leading the Copa Shell Championship standings. And yeah, there is, yeah, number 1 for pole position. Well, not at the moment because Peter Hunter is still out there. Hamandra Pillai comes through. He did stick with the lap and is going to have one more go at it. So there's only 30 seconds remaining, but he's over the start-finish line and on to another lap to see what he can do. He's out there pressing on. The number 82 car of Peter Hunter is out there pressing on, and also number 78 Mike Dewhurst is also pressing on. Mike Dewhurst possibly on for improvement as well, faster through the first and the second sectors than he's previously gone. But for Peter Hunter, there's one more roll of the dice for the Stratstone Manchester driver as he exits Knickerbrook, climbs up Clay Hill. He is slightly slower through the first sector than he has previously gone. He's also slightly slower through the second sector than he has previously gone. Can he do anything about the time of Robert Rees? He only needs to improve Peter Hunter by 89 thousandths of a second to take the Copa Shell pole position. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But it's certainly not. So competitive as ever is the Ferrari Challenge UK. And for Peter Hunter, he knew the lap wasn't coming together, so he does actually head in towards the pit lane area. Mike Dewhurst did improve, though, on the previous lap. I said he was going quicker than he had done. He's done a 1 minute 42.1 exactly. So that now moves him up to 8th overall and 3rd quickest of the Copa Shell drivers. So he is improving. And that means that Gary Redman drops a place. Steve Dobson also drops a place. But for Mike Dewhurst, he is very pleased indeed with the time. Looks as though he may well be sticking with this lap as well. Slightly slower through the first sector. What does the second sector look like for him as he goes underneath the bridge at Clay Hill? Quicker through the second sector than the previous lap when he did improve. So this could be another improvement for Mike Dewhurst. He would need to improve by half a second if he wants to improve his grid position. Bounces over the curbs as well on the apex at Druids, and then heads up towards the braking area for Lodge. Again, you can see the nose of the car dip, so he's still sticking with the lap by the look of things. I think he's the only car out there that hasn't taken the checkered flag as yet, and as he comes over the start-finish line, can he post a further improvement from the 1 minute 42.1? No, 1 minute 42.3 from him, so slightly slower on his final qualification lap, and that is everybody through now. Gilbert Yates is, subject to official confirmation, going to start from pole position in our first of the 2 races that we've got here for the Ferrari Challenge UK over the course of this weekend. There'll be a separate qualifying session tomorrow morning that will set the grid for tomorrow's race. Mandra Pillai out of the car. Mikey Broadhurst, his driver coach, just patting him on the back. And for qualifying then, let's just confirm the results. Gilbert Yates is fastest in qualifying. He will line up on the front row of the grid earlier on today with the reigning champion Andrew Morrow alongside him. Pranav Vangala was 3rd quickest with AJ Litt there in 4th quickest. Hamandra Pillai was 5th, and in 6th place it's pole for Copa Shell for Robert Rees. Peter Hunter was 7th, Mike Dewhurst was 8th, Gary Redman was 9th, Steve Dobson was 10th, and of course we will see out Darrell Howell, hopefully with his car being ready to go for the race later on today once they solve the problems with his car. So qualifying done and dusted. Let's go down to the pit lane and Amanda.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I'm standing here with Gilbert Yates, proudly holding your Trofeo Pirelli pole position trophy. Watching you all through the morning and through that session, you looked like you had the car on rails. It was dancing. Did it feel good?
Yeah, this morning's first session was really good, the free practice. Second session was good, but the qualifying, to be honest with you, was about a second 0.3 slower than this morning. The temperature's getting increasing, and it's just not as fast, but the car was great.
It looked like you had the car nicely dialed in, your lines were good, and you can just see when a car is driving well, when it is dancing around like that. How are you noticing the temperature change inside the car?
Braking points and coming out of the corners, so that dancing you're talking about, you just lose it back in a little bit sometimes, and I was trying to drive it like this morning, and I had to then redial that back in, so I lost a couple of laps, but it was all good.
Of course, you got Andrew starting alongside you as well?
Yes, Andrew's a quick guy. He's #1. He won last year's championship, so he's one to watch out for.
But you've been on fire so far, so we're going to be having our eyes on you. Well done, congratulations.
Thank you very much. We'll be keeping the fire lit all weekend.
And Dave, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Amanda. Here we are with our Copa Shell pole sitter. It's another point in the bag as he is presented with the Rotiform Pole Position Award. Many, many congratulations, Robert Rees. Tell you what, though, it was close.
It was very close, extremely close. And 1/10 of a second is just about enough. But it got us there.
And that's where you need to be, isn't it? Let's be honest. You come here on a rich vein of success, and I am assuming, Robert Rees, you desperately want that to continue.
I do. I really, really do. However, we cannot sort of rest on our laurels. We've got to keep pushing hard.
That's the sound of our winning racing driver, isn't it? Well done, Robert Rees. Then Coppershell, pole sitter, good luck for the race.
Thank you ever so much, Dave, and thank you.
You can take your 5 minutes now, friend. Robert Rees off to enjoy a well-needed glass of water, I would suggest. And on that note, back to you, Mark Werrell.
Thank you, Dave. Yep, so let's just have a quick look at some of the highlights from qualifying. The early part of the session, it was Pranav van Gala that was posting the quick times. He was one of the first to set the fastest laps out there. We also saw Hemandra Pillai. He was pressing on. Lost 1 lap time, though, because he did, like a few drivers, run wide on some of the corners, and therefore the lap times were disallowed. It's all about fine margins here at Oulton Park. Robert Rees was looking to try and set the pace in Coppershell. We just heard from him. And the reigning champion, Andrew Morrow, had a good go at the wheel of the number 1 car to see what he might be able to do, but he couldn't quite do it. AJ Litt had a really good qualifying session, and Mike Dewhurst at the wheel of the number 78 car really came alive in the closing stages of it to see what he might be able to do. Peter Hunter at the wheel of his Stratstone Manchester number 82 car was pushing hard to see if he could pick up the Coppershell pole position, but it wasn't quite to be from him. Robert Rees was the man at the wheel of the number 8 car that set the fastest time in Coppershell, only 88 thousandths of a second quicker than Peter Hunter. It was all rather close, but the overall fastest time and pole position goes the way of the number 11 of Gilbert Yates. So that's it from qualifying for the Ferrari Challenge UK. Remember, we've got the 3rd race of the 2024 championship season coming up for you this afternoon. Around about 3:30 is when we're due to get that underway. So thanks for joining us for qualifying. We'll catch you later on for race 1. Goodbye.